First of all, that's so sweet. There's like so much love with this group. It's just, you can feel it. It's just so nice to be with all of you today. Thank you for that introduction. Thank you to the USC Kaufman administration for the privilege of addressing all of you today. I know that due to larger events way out of anyone's control, that this graduation is not like other years, so I'm honored to be able to keep my commitment and be here celebrating with all of you. I'm honestly a little shocked that I'm here, as I gave up being able to make a remarkable contribution to dance when I was 16. At that time, I had a very honest look at myself in the mirror, and I realized I would never be a star of the New York City Ballet, and so I decided to go to college instead. What I found out, however, was that once dance gets into your bloodstream, it just stays in your DNA. After college, I moved to New York City. I became a dancer anyway, just happy to dance and be completely satisfied in just being a dancer. That changed when I left Peter Martin's office at the New York City Ballet in November of 2017. We met because he wanted my feedback on the Chinese dance in George Balanchine's Nutcracker, both because I knew the ballet and the choreography inside and out, but also because I had the lived experience of being Chinese living in the minority in America. After that conversation, Peter removed the Yellowface from the dance without canceling it. It was in that moment that I realized I had a choice. We could either collectively give the New York City Ballet a pat on the back for finally joining the 21st century before going back to our busy lives, or we could use this as an opportunity to start a much larger dialogue for change in our field. With a simple pledge, I love ballet, so we're not going to do Yellowface anymore. The formation of Final Bow for Yellowface, and now 7 years later, the formation of the Gold Standard Arts Foundation, which supports Asian creatives in dance. We've gotten almost every major American ballet company to sign on to this work, and many European companies on board with improving Asian representation for Asians both on stage and off. I attribute our success to the principle of inclusive advocacy, meaning instead of saying, hey, you need to change, say, hey, we need to change. Hopefully this approach of inclusive advocacy, putting yourself inside the problem in a place of shared love with the person whose mind you're trying to change, is one thing that you can practice in other areas if you're interested in making change happen. So climate change, global conflicts, other areas that need addressing, think about how to practice inclusive advocacy. As someone on the front lines of a cultural shift in our field, I'll be the first to admit that change is hard. As new graduates, you're on the cusp of incredible and exciting change. If you're having any doubts, though, just remember that the lessons you learned in the dance studio will serve you very well in the real world, both as performers and as professionals. Dance teaches resilience, determination, grit, adaptability, confidence, teamwork, self-discipline, self-care. The same drive that it took you to master multiple jazz pirouettes is what will propel you to succeed in life. That same adaptability and that discipline to wake up every morning with a slightly different body and still deliver that consistency is how to move up in any field. That same attack you need to step into that arabesque or make sure that break hits just right, that's that same confidence you need when you walk into a job interview or an audition. My personal creative prompt, my favorite creative prompt that drives all of my work is, what else could it be? A question itself implies endless possibility and potential. It's a question I ask in my creative process, whether I'm transforming a Nutcracker Chinese caricature into a sprightly green tea cricket character, or Hindu fakirs rolling around on the floor into goofy, lovable Hollywood cowboys. It's also a question I've had to apply to myself in order to see my own potential. What else could I be? A choreographer, a scholar, an opera director? Don't be afraid to run towards the thing that your gut is telling you that you have to do, or you have to try. Other people might not understand it, but once you show them an unfiltered view of what is in your heart, they will understand. Have the courage to let yourself be the person you have to be. Find something you're passionate about outside of the studio. Stay open, stay curious, read, keep reading. Please keep reading. Get yourself a side hustle, a secondary creative outlet. While in my heart I will always be a dancer, my knees and my lower back remind me that, hey, the ukulele is also a lot of fun. Learn from your mistakes. In the studio, you learn from your mistakes. It makes you a better performer on stage, right? You can learn from your mistakes in life too. It's the same process. Also, I'd be remiss in being a good Chinese uncle if I didn't talk about money for a second. Invest in your retirement now. Open an IRA or a 401k, put some of that graduation money in there now. Maybe there's a grandparent or a parent who wants to throw you a little extra something if you say, hey, I'm gonna start a 401k, Mom. Squirreling away a little bit now will make an exponential difference to you in the future when your knees can't give it to you anymore, right? Also, don't sickle your feet. It's bad for your alignment, it burns my eyes, and trust me, in 20 years, when you're looking back at those beautiful dance photos, you're not gonna wanna see it. So don't sickle your feet. Treat yourself like royalty. There's no guarantee in life that you'll be treated the way you deserve. So make sure you love yourself, you respect yourself, and you love your body. That's all you got. Also, be kind. There's a lot of that today already I'm seeing, so I love that we're practicing that. But be kind. This community is very, very small, and eventually everybody comes back around to each other. Who knows? One of you might be my boss someday. Also, help other people. People want to help people who help people. No one becomes a success on their own. So show up for somebody else. Be that helper for somebody else, and you'll be surprised how many people will show up for you in return. With that, be gracious, embrace a spirit of gratitude. Where does your deep love of dance come from? Be honest with yourself about the answer to that one, because it will be your foundation when things get rough. Where does your love of dance come from, and what does it give you? You're going to need to reconnect to that place a lot. I like to think of my work with Final Bow and my anti-racist work as sort of like doing tendus every day. And for the parents and grandparents who don't know, tendu is like brushing your foot on the floor every day. It's sort of a warm-up. It builds strength. When you first start, you're probably a little clumsy, a little awkward at it, right? But then you do it every day, you get a little stronger. A tendu becomes a dégagé, becomes a bama, becomes a grand jeté, and suddenly you're dancing in front of thousands of people. But at no point are you like, all right, I got a perfect tendu, right? I can go back to posting pictures of my dinner on Instagram, right? The reward for a perfect tendu is more tendus, right? And so when you look at changing the world as a direction and not a destination, then you can do it with love, you can rest, you can do it without guilt. So keep that in mind when you're doing your practice. Just keep doing your tendus, right? It's a small thing, but it's where big things start. So what's one small thing you can do to make the world a better place for maybe one person, or maybe your community, or your town, or your field? That's all that Final Bow for Yellowface was for me, was just like one small thing in my little corner of the world. But you know, if enough of us do that one small little thing, it starts to add up, right? So start somewhere small, but that's where the big change can happen. And finally, just be open to that change, right? Stay open. Change brings opportunities. Meeting the changes of life with the resilience of being a dancer is what will make you remarkable. Be ready to embrace it. I can't wait to see what all of you guys will do next. So now, everybody, please join me once again in congratulating the USC Kaufman class of 2024.